Some uranium stocks are doing very well today. We're going to go over the overall uranium market. We're going to look at some charts, some breakouts happening. We're also going to look at some big hedge funds buying uranium stocks. We're going to talk about that, what it means. Some updates with Ukraine, their biggest nuclear power plant, what's going on. Also going to go over the CPI numbers, what it means for commodities right now. We'll look at commodities. They're starting to take off again, and we're going to go over everything. So you guys did pretty good. The last video, we almost got 1,000 likes. I think last time I saw it was 1776 before I started filming this. Now the market's about to close, but you guys down below, let me know what number like you are. I really like reading your comments. I sometimes go to your YouTube pages, especially if your name is funny, like you put something funny. I go and look. So write down the number like you are on this one. We'll try again to get to 1,000 by tonight. And thank you so much for the support, by the way. Now, the chart's looking really good on UEC. Now, UEC is pretty much leading the markets other than LEU for uranium. Now, the market is up 2.8%, but this chart is looking really good. We're starting to see one of my favorite charts, which is a cup and handle breakout. Now, a normal cup and handle will be about 5% from the high. We're actually down about 10% from the high here. And that's usually typical what I see with the breakouts with uranium stocks. Now, we're starting to flag up here. We're starting to form the handle, lower highs and higher lows. This summer, it's kind of sideways movement for spot, but we've got a lot of catalysts coming. We did see some pretty good volume coming in here as well, which I do like. And we're going to talk about what this big volume, why it went up. And there is a lot of information if you look into the hedge funds that are buying. I'm going to show you which hedge funds we're buying and adding and possibly selling during this time. But one of my favorite charts that's starting to form up, in the past few months, this cup and handle breakout's looking really good. And these are the stock charts that I've normally traded in uranium and did phenomenal. Now, the catalysts, the fundamentals are also there. They're lining up as well. We're going to talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about the specific big companies buying these uranium stocks. But if we look today, right now, we can see UEX and UEC. The deal, they obviously put that in. And we'll see if UEC, I've been checking the SEC website, we'll check again. We'll see if UEC puts in another deal. It is possible, but their UEX is up 26%, they're pretty sideways now. And then UEC is close to 15%. Cameco is about 12%. And, these two stocks hit those 52-week highs recently, and I'll show you why. And it's really the filings here. Now, when we first started, some of the big companies, they started buying real recently, right? Now, if we look at the biggest buys in UEC, we have 141 million, State Street Corp. And this was the reported around the time, a little bit after when the stock dropped, okay? And they've been buying more during that time. So it's possible that we could see another report that some of these really big companies, BlackRock, 79 million in UEC, Vanguard, a lot of these big companies down here, they could have been selling out. And we have seen recently that there were some selling, very small though. These numbers is what, sometimes I'll usually day trade in the stock itself. So now we have seen some buying though recently as well, a little bit more, in some of these smaller companies. But it is awesome to see that there are, 169 funds now holding, almost, 100 more just in the past couple of years. Now, a lot of the big buying happened on the record volume, right? And we will need to see that record volume for this breakout here. And the catalysts are coming. It's all there. When we had some of this record volume here coming in, this hit 11-year highs out on the chart. It's looking really good, okay? But obviously that cup and handle breakout, I'm really thinking that if that volume comes in, it's gonna run pretty quickly. Now, we were about 429 earlier today. US uranium stocks, they're starting to see, it's low volume today, but they're the ones real big winners. Now, LEU was up almost 7%. Now, their stock is back at $42. It just hit recently $17. But SMR in the same industry, although they don't buy HALEU, is down 5%. I had some people asking me about it. I've covered this stock since early last year before it even listed on the SPAC. Now, there are warrants likely, especially with these new SPACs. So there is probably selling. Money's probably moving back into the Nasdaq. So stocks like that, that's what I said, that is the risk. There are warrants. A lot of these uranium stocks, there are warrants as well. A lot of talking heads out there that loan money. Their companies loan money to a lot of the uranium stocks. They're warrants. They're gonna, be out there. It's gonna be an overhead for the stock, and it can limit it for a while. I won't specifically name names of certain stocks, but there are stocks out there that have been held back, and it is because of warrants, okay? Now, if we look at the spot price is still around $48, $49, but it's up 48%. Now, spot bought in September last year, it was record volume. Hadn't seen it since 1996, right? So we could see that again in the fall. I think that they're strategically doing this. They're smart. They know when the big run's going to happen. And when utilities are starting to come back as they are, if spot's in there, it's going to create this crazy movement in the spot market. And the long-term market obviously is moving up. So it is going to be a crazy time, I think, by fall. Now, something I really want to touch on, and this was the previous uranium bull market. It's really about the story of the stock. So Paladin, although it did 104,000%, that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the Explorer in 4 years going to a producer, right? So in 2007, this is their annual report, when Langer Heinrich Mine had issues there, they had to go into the spot market by 250,000 pounds. They had only produced 119,000 pounds up to this point. This was at the peak of the uranium price and the peak of their stock price during this time. So it's all about the story leading up to it. Now, this new uranium bull market is going to be a long-term uranium bull market. We have demand that we have not seen since the 70s, when there were 10 plus nuclear reactors in the US coming up every year, sometimes more. That demand, we saw Westinghouse buy 60 million pounds in 1973-74 for contracting, and they got screwed because the price went up 700%, and then they were down billions and billions of dollars. If you look at the past, these stocks did their biggest run-ups, and they peaked when the uranium price peaked, and they did not really even get into production, okay? And you got to look at the past on that, right? Now, if we look at UEC in the past, we're going to look at UEX as well. This is some numbers that I have about the market cap and where it was. UEC was a penny stock. It traded on the OTCBB. They really got started, and they actually got into production during the uranium bull market. We saw 400 uranium stocks get delisted. This stock is not even close. Back then, it had 25 million pounds. Now, if they get those UEX assets, it's going to be 307 million pounds. It's going to be a game changer for the stock. By the way, I saw some comments, and a lot of you guys commented on the number, but one person in particular said that they thought that UEC was a poser uranium stock. UEC, their VP, their vice president, is Scott Melby. He's the president of the Uranium Producers of America.
Mr. Melby.
Thank you, Chairman Manchin and Ranking Member Barrasso and committee members. I'm the Executive Vice President of Uranium Energy Corp. with operations in the states of Wyoming and Texas, and I'm also the president of the Uranium Producers of America. As a second-generation American uranium miner with 37 years of experience in the nuclear fuel industry, I'm proud to lead the trade association representing the domestic uranium mining and conversion industry. It's an honor to testify regarding America's dangerous reliance on strategic competitors for critical minerals like uranium. Nuclear power is an indispensable part of the American economy, powering 1 in 5 U.S. homes and supplying over 50% of our carbon-free power. As we integrate more and more intermittent sources of energy like wind and solar onto the grid, nuclear power represents a crucial carbon-free baseload capacity that ensures that the lights always stay on. Unfortunately, almost none of the fuel needed to power America's nuclear fleet today comes from domestic producers. Employing predatory market practices, state-owned entities in Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan now supply nearly half of the uranium consumed by U.S. nuclear utilities. We estimate that more than $1 billion per year in nuclear fuel purchases are flowing from the United States to Rosatom, the Russian state atomic energy company, which is an extension of the Kremlin and clearly part of the Russian military complex. It's simply unconscionable to allow U.S. dollar uranium purchases to continue funding the Putin war machine. Members of the committee, I would like to offer a roadmap for ending U.S. reliance on Russia for nuclear fuel. First, ban imports of Russian uranium. The UPA strongly supports bipartisan legislation introduced by Ranking Member Barrasso and Representatives Pete Stauber and Vicente Gonzalez in the House to impose a ban on Russian uranium imports. The U.S. has ample uranium resources and the capacity to produce them at the highest environmental, safety, and health standards in the world. Together with free world uranium suppliers in Canada, Australia, and Western Europe, UPA's member companies stand ready to work with the U.S. utilities, Congress, and the administration to ensure that every existing and planned domestic reactor will be able to maintain operations. Second, establish the Strategic Uranium Reserve. The reserve is the result of multiple federal investigations and studies which determined that America's reliance on uranium imports threatens national security. Congress funded the reserve at $75 million for the fiscal year 2021, yet 15 months later, the DOE has not yet stood up the program. DOE must stop delaying and move forward on this program immediately. In the meantime, Congress must continue its support of the reserve and provide the full funding initially requested by DOE, $150 million per year. Third, create a domestic source of high-assay, low-enriched uranium, or HALEU. This fuel is critical for the advanced reactor projects that have been such a high priority for this committee. The only current commercial source of HALEU is Russia. Without swift action to develop alternatives, the next generation of nuclear power will be entirely dependent on Russia for fuel. A crucial immediate step is the downblending of existing inventories through which DOE could create a stopgap source of HALEU while domestic capabilities for long-term supply can be established. And fourth, uranium must be maintained on the federal critical minerals list. Uranium's non-fuel uses are critical to national security. According to the USGS, these include radiation shields, counterweights, armor-piercing, kinetic energy penetrators, as well as life-saving medical isotope production. Our rare earth and critical mineral dependence on China is strikingly similar to what could happen with uranium if we don't act with urgency. My important message to you today is that the domestic uranium industry can meet this challenge. Given a level global playing field, the domestic uranium industry has the capacity to produce significant quantities of competitive and geopolitically secure uranium. While almost all of our capacity is idle today, the domestic industry can produce over 20 million pounds of annual production, enough to fuel close to half our U.S. reactors. A robust domestic supply chain for nuclear fuel has never been more necessary. We stand ready to meet America's energy and national security needs, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Melby.
UEC has recently got the Uranium One assets that Russia had. Now they're bidding on some of the greatest low-price assets in the world with UEX, the highest grades. Their company's doing very well. I don't see them being a poser. They've got permits to produce ISR, the lowest cost in uranium in the US. We haven't seen uranium production like they're going to ramp up to since the 70s. There really has been none. So the company never got a chance to perform. They never got a chance to even get in the game. And yet they produced a few million pounds during the bear market, even as a stock that was, barely survived. Now the management has made a complete 180, and that is why I'm talking about the stock a lot. I want to concentrate on US producers, but if you see UEX down here, it was 2006. This wasn't even at the peak of the uranium bull market. It was the next year. And the stock, they only had 65 million pounds UEX back then. So these companies are completely different. Now their market caps this time around could be a lot bigger than the peak. Remember, it was a quick peak and done, and overproduction started. We're not even going to see production for a lot of these companies for years. And we're already coming up on this crazy contracting cycle. And this fall could get very crazy, okay? Now, some updates on the Z plant. So the G7 countries, they had an urgent call for Russia to give back over the Z plant. And basically what Russia is looking to do is they're looking to hook up this plant to Crimea, right? And this is going to be somewhat of a risk if they do it. And that's what G7 is saying, because the plant, when they do that, it'll be hooked up and it'll be running by generators, right? Diesel generators, everything relies on that stockpile of diesel. And if these trucks are coming in, diesel trucks, and Ukraine hits the trucks and they can't run everything, it is a risk. So we could see, the IAEA get in there and hopefully somehow mitigate a lot of this. But obviously the plants, what I've been hearing, are shut down. Now they destroyed, from what it sounds like, they're saying that they destroyed these power lines, these high-powered power lines, so that they could actually, that's one way they can actually hook up to the grid to get it to Crimea, okay? So they re-divert this electricity over there, and it's going to be generators, So they said that that's the plan for Russia, okay? So we're going to see how that goes. If you look at the overall market, this is every single stock in the market today. It's doing very well. Everything's doing great. And it is a shame that some uranium stocks, are not up today. But, it is summer. We're seeing kind of sideways movement, a lot of it. We have a lot of catalysts coming and the long-term contracts coming. But If you look at energy commodities, a lot of energy commodities are up today. We see, oil was up around 1% earlier. Now, uranium, I think, is what's next to move. And especially in the next couple months by fall, we're probably going to see these new highs if these contracts come in, if the utilities, if processors come in, overfeeding starts. It's going to get really interesting. Now, the CPI numbers, 8.5% today, plain and simple. The real numbers are probably close to 12 to 15%, maybe higher. They really wanted to get these numbers down. We see a pump in the stock market. I don't necessarily buy it. I think that these higher prices are going to go back up. And I think this is just temporary. Elections are coming up. They needed to get these funding and the bills passed. So they did everything in their power to get these numbers down, right? I don't think it's going to last. Okay. Now, we'll do an update right here. SEC for UEC. Did they put in a filing? We're updating it and it looks like nothing yet. So doing this live for you guys, but hopefully you guys like this video. Comment below your number. We'll try again, probably close to 1,000 almost. Let's try to get that by tonight. Let's get 1,000 likes and write down the number you are and comment. And I'll go check out your channel. I'm going to try to reply to every single one of you. It's awesome to see who subscribes to the channel. We got people from Germany, literally from all over the world. And it is great to still be connected, even if a lot of the media is shut off in some of the areas. A lot of you can still get information from YouTube videos. So it is awesome. So thank you so much for the support. And if you guys want to check out anything else, check out my link in the description below for my Discord. And that's where all the stuff is updated. Thank you again. And look forward to you guys getting 1,000 likes so we can get that Uranium 4 documentary. And if you guys like these updates on uranium, I'll continue to do them. But until next time.